Well, hello and welcome to another episode of More Perfect Marketing. This is David Baer, and today we're going to be diving into a conversation around the current state of the economy in the world and how that impacts what businesses do when it comes to marketing. You may or you may not be surprised that a lot of businesses tend to be a little bit trepidatious about spending money when economic times don't look that great. And one of the first places that they're willing to cut, perhaps unwisely, I bet you'll assume that much from the topic of our show, is in marketing. Well, to help me explore this topic, somebody who knows the landscape well, has seen this firsthand with businesses, and has some guidance on how to handle it is Veena Gandhi, who is joining me from Melbourne, Australia today. Veena, welcome.
Thank you so very much, David, for having me on the show. Very excited to join today.
Indeed. So, just let's talk a little bit about the work that you've done in the marketing space and how you've sort of witnessed the challenges that businesses deal with when it comes to recession and other challenging economies. You started out working for a major international marketing advertising firm based here in Chicago in the U.S. You've done work, I think, in UAE and India, and now you've been down in Australia for a while. What types of businesses have you mostly focused on?
So I started my career with the FMCG sector, and then I also, managed electronics and publications. And now I am completely into the fashion industry, beauty industry. So it's been a wide portfolio that I've managed. And I've worked on multi-million dollar campaigns as well, David, as part of my agencies, because I work with brands like Leobanet, McCann. And then with my own businesses, I work with small to medium-sized businesses and, of course, large businesses as well as and when they come to us. But primarily, what I've seen, but even and the biggest example was as soon as COVID 20 hit us in 2020, the first thing everyone did was cut down on their marketing budgets because there was this real fear. We don't know what's in store for us, and most of us have witnessed the 2008 recession. And again, the first thing brands or even small players they did was let's not advertise because suddenly there's this CEO who's sitting on top of your head. There is this entire finance department sitting on a company's head and saying, okay, where can we cut budgets, where can we cut budgets? And the first thing you ask is your marketing spend. But is it really wise to do it is my question, because we've seen, and there's a lot of research out there, especially by Harvard and McGraw, where they've said that after every session, and they've interviewed, not like they've researched not like 100 or 200 companies, like 4,000 companies
Mm-hmm.
across small and medium and big businesses, where brands that kept, or businesses that rather, that kept advertising during recession, uh, for the next 3 years, they not just tripled or quadrupled their returns, they actually boomed. They actually made profits. And on the contrary, businesses that didn't advertise or market or really, really cut down on their marketing spend, they lost it took them 3 more years to get back to their original revenues. I mean, they were not even like making profit. So if you really see, if a recession lasts say for 3 to 5 years, and then you come again, you spend 3 more years, you've lost those good 8 years, and by the time you recover, it's time for another cycle to start, right?
Yeah.
So and I think that's something which CEOs, with marketing directors and finance or small business owners as well need to understand is, if you can keep advertising, if you can sustain it, go ahead and do it. And um, and I'll just tell you why also, because it sounds okay,
Sure.
fine, because she is a media professional and she's advertising, and she'll say, of course you have to do ads. But just think about it is, uh, even during recession, people buy, right? It's just that you have to categorize them into various segments. So, there are people who are unfortunately hit really hard, and what we call that is the people who just put a break on their spend.
Yeah.
So that's one pocket of your audience. Then there are people who are careful, who, who just want to be a little careful because it's cost of goods has gone up, cost of living has gone up, and there's inflation, etc. And then there's your third pocket, who is like, who still lives for the day. And we are in a changing scenario today. We are in 2022, we are not in 2008. We also have millennials, we also have Gen Z now that lives for the moment, right?
Hmm.
And also, and there is always going to be a segment that can still spend. So what it does is brands stop advertising, companies stop advertising, your cost of advertising goes down, right? And that's when you can do strategies like building awareness, brand building, even if you don't want to sell directly. So, and it's that time when you have to revisit your marketing strategies, because what worked for you during good times will not work for you during a recession. And I think that's the outlook a company or a business should really be having is, what can I really do at this point in time, and think long term. Because if you're in a game of running a business, if you're in the if you want to build a brand, it's not like a, and you know yourself, you can't build a brand in 2 days. You can't market for one day and then forget about marketing for the rest of the year. So this is that time where you can actually spend small, maybe spend, brands that have spent more have always performed better, and businesses that have not spent yet less or not at all have actually seen that decline. So I think that's the challenge, and it's time to revisit your numbers. Should you really axe your marketing budget, or should you axe something else? So that's really, really, it's that time when, when you sit with your finance team and say, all right, show me the numbers and tell me what else can I do apart from axing my marketing budget. So that's one thing.
So when I look at this topic in general, I think that businesses that have a solid foundation, a solid relationship with existing customers, are likely in a better position. And that, shifting, you talked about shifting a marketing budget, maybe to do less selling and more brand building during certain periods, doing different activities makes sense. One of the things that I would imagine would make sense is, look, if you're not going to spend the same sorts of dollars that you might spend, I guess you and I have dollars, but whatever currency, somebody might be using, that you are dedicating some of your activity around, where can I continue to make sales and spend less? The first thing that pops to mind for me is, if you have an existing relationship with people who are on a list, or that you can communicate with outside of advertising, well, that's a go-to audience. What other things might be sort of go-to solutions that you would see as possibilities for businesses that may not be as intuitive to them, but can still bring in the revenue that they need to survive during a period where maybe new customer acquisition is not going to be where they dedicate their money?
Yeah, so list building, and that's why we always say build your list, because that's your real estate, or a part of it is your real estate eventually. Of course, you can, try and nurture and resell to your existing email list. But a very, very overlooked aspect is collaborations and partnerships
Hmm.
with, similar brands. So for example, maybe I sell hats. I'm just giving you an example.
Mm-hmm.
And there is another brand that sells sunscreen. Now that's a collaboration, that's a partnership much overlooked. So, to identify how you both can benefit each other, and perhaps email it to each other's list, or come up with a promotion. Or I'm just winging this example right
Mm-hmm.
now, but just come up with a promotion or an idea, and then market to each other's list, because then what you're doing is you're increasing their database as well, and
Yeah.
be on each other's, so that's one thing. And promote each other on your socials, because we as I was telling you earlier, 2008 recession was different for from a media buying perspective as well as 2022. We never had Facebook, or we never had TikTok or Instagram at that point in time. Facebook was very, very small. It was just like a baby at that point in
Mhm.
time. It wasn't the giant it is today. TikTok didn't even exist then. So media buying was, too much, was in traditional channels like TV, radio, newspapers. You could not even go ahead and target very could not do very segmented targeting as well. And right now, when you've built your social media channels, or even if you haven't built, it's an opportunity to start building them during these times, so that when uh, good times come back, you can again start hitting out at those channels again. So and
So when you say you start building those channels, obviously there's different ways to build, and maybe there's money being spent in marketing on social media through advertising, but there's also money being spent through organic development of a relationship as well, right? And so you may spend time or money on staff who are running things at a different investment level than you're spending on ads being shown to people, I'm guessing. Are there more sort of long-term investment uh, recommendations that you would make around leveraging? Investment in social media is a big topic, and I guess I'm looking to get a little more granular in what type of activity could businesses consider, or what is the range of activity that they could select from within just the social media landscape?
yeah, so something, um, the biggest peeve any business today has, it whether you are a multi-million business or you are a tiny business, is how to produce content for my social media. I mean, we all know, especially organic or paid, we all know as marketing professionals, that's the first thing that is like, there is a lot of content being produced, but still each business owner or brand owner feels that we don't have enough content, and agencies are never happy with the amount of content that is being put out there, and relevant content.
Yeah.
So I think this is one opportunity where you can upskill your staff to start producing that content in house if you don't have those capabilities yet. Because if you are, and agencies are going to hate me for this recommendation, I know, because they'll say she's telling marketers how to upscale and take away the business from them.
Mm.
But it's also an opportunities for agencies to pivot, right? So so if you have start doing these things in house, when you feel that you what else can that person do is start help you start produce content. And that's something, once the more content you put out, no matter where the algorithms are going, eventually that what really counts, that what really matters as well. And then have a spend behind them, a small spend behind them, so then you don't need to spend uh, a large amount as well. You can start spending small behind that content and pushing that content out there to your relevant target audience. It's
Mhm.
also time to build that target audience. So that, and as I said earlier, it's time to revisit everything. What exactly do you really want to do with your advertising dollars, with your marketing dollars at that point in time?
Yeah, I see this sort of twofold in the small business and the large, enterprise organizations. I imagine approach this incredibly differently, but the what in a small organization we see is invest in bring in the leads, and then you stop bringing in the leads and you start selling and you start servicing, and then you realize, oh no, I don't have any more leads, I got to go back again, right? And that may be sort of the regular roller coaster routine, and obviously when we have economic challenges, then they just shut off the pipeline completely. Large organizations really look at budget more than anything else, and they will, as you were describing earlier, they'll say let's pull back. And even I've seen this time and again with large organizations where even when it strategically makes sense for them to keep going with something that is successful. And we'll talk about the data-driven nature of the work that you do in just a moment, but that they'll say, oh, nope, sorry, your budget has been spent for the year. Let's shut that campaign off, because they're mostly not looking at the activity in marketing as it's tied to results. Mostly they're looking at, is the budget spent? Has the budget been spent effectively? And then is the department getting that same budget again next year? Right. So I'm curious if you can talk, because a lot of what you've been talking about, I'm certain, is informed by data. How does data enter into sort of the way that you counsel a business to think about their marketing?
Yeah, and David, that's a great question because it has to be numbers driven or data driven. Because if your data is not out there, and it's all, there's also a big problem out there because each marketing activity cannot be equal to ROI. And and I think that's something which really needs, and it's a larger topic for discussion as well, because SEO, for example, that you cannot qualify SEO as equal to ROI immediately, because it takes an X amount of months to, or time period, to start getting leads or conversions or whatever your goal is. So what every time, and every time brands, the first thing they say, all right, my marketing budget is over and now I'll go ahead for next year. What we really look at nowadays is MER, because as platforms as well, especially with the iOS 14 update, has really that earlier, where platforms would at least give us an indication of, if I've spent an X amount, I'm getting a Y ROS, but now that's also not there. So what we started following in my agency is what we call a marketing efficiency ratio. So which is a very simple formula. Is, suppose I'm spending $100,000 or 50,000 or $10,000 per month on my ad spend.
Mm-hmm.
What is this, is the equivalent sale value, right? So suppose I make 400,000. So a brand has made, they've spent 100,000, they've made 400,000. So it is 400,000 divided by 100,000. So your your revenue divided by your spend is equal to your MER. And that's what we've started doing. And it takes into totality your spend across channels.
Mm-hmm.
So, whether it's one platform you're advertising, two platform, or whatever marketing activity you're doing. And it can sometimes be below the line activities, such as an event also, because brands do that as well. And for a small business owner, it can be, maybe they're investing in newspapers and flyers and things like that. So it can be that as well. So that's how we calculate. Obviously, there are other ways as well to read platform data, because digital still gives you far more data than what perhaps radio, newspaper, or TV will give you, and because it reaches that kind of an audience as well. So yeah, that's something which has to be looked at as in totality. You cannot just say, because SEO is not giving me results, I will not do it, because you are not able to map it immediately. And another very important thing, and I always say marketing is a long-term thing, building a brand is a long-term thing, getting sales is an immediate goal, but you have to think long-term. You cannot milk the cow till it's completely drained. You have to feed the cow as well, and you have to nurture and pamper the cow as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that is something we really need to keep in mind. So if you really look at, and always go month on month, week on week, go back to your numbers, because, and this is a very big issue with small and medium sized businesses. When they come to us, so many times they are like burnt. They just don't know. Their store might be doing hundreds and thousands, hundreds. Like we have a store I was auditing the other day, which is doing about 250, 300K revenue per month. But unfortunately, the numbers are in red.
Mm-hmm.
So, you might be thinking, oh, it's $1 million+ company, but the numbers are in red. And that's where are you spending? What is giving you returns is so very important to look into.
Yeah. You talked about this MER concept, which is a new one for me, marketing efficiency ratio. I like that concept. There obviously, with the ability to have all the data that digital channels give us access to, it is possible to dial it in on a per channel basis and say, gosh, I'm spending this much on this digital channel, and also then track what is the traffic, what is the return, how much of that traffic is converting into sales, what types of sales is it converting into, higher or low ticket, or lower, shopping cart totals. I don't know the terminology in ecom, so I'll just go with the basic terms. And so I imagine that for a more sophisticated operation, that in a tighter economy, you actually can dial in to some of the channel specific data and make some informed decisions, at least for the interim period. But I understand, obviously, that looking at the broader number really helps, particularly in a place where it's hard to assign specific revenue or ROI on things like SEO or offline, ads that don't have a, response tracking mechanism like a billboard.
Yeah. So I'll just tell you something, David. I was reading somewhere yesterday that Amazon might go for a second Prime Day this year in October because they want to increase sales this year. So you know
Mhm.
about the Amazon Prime Day concept?
Mhm.
Yeah. And so they are going to do it for a second time this year, which is big coming from Amazon because somewhere in Amazon sat down with the numbers. I mean, they have a huge team, of course. So those guys sat down with the numbers and said, all right, we need to push more sales. So let's go and do another Prime Day, another
So
sale period.
let's
So
actually just make sure I do understand the concept, because I know it as a consumer, and I can guess that it's a loss leader that brings people to the site. They buy something at a lower price and then end up filling up their cart with stuff that there's a higher margin on. Is that the concept, or am I missing something?
Yeah, so that's the concept for Amazon, in the sense from a business point of view, but and also, but a consumer just thinks, oh my goodness, those, so maybe that shirt I saw for say $300 is now for $50. I need to get it. So as a consumer, when I see such big discounts,
Yeah.
I am like, oh, let me just buy. And especially it's October and we are very close to Christmas, which is a great strategy because as I keep telling brands, your Christmas sales, your Christmas shopping has started so much earlier nowadays. With each year it starts
Mhm.
earlier. It doesn't have to wait till November or till December.
Yeah.
So yeah, and what it does for businesses that are that participate in the Amazon Prime Day is it boosts their sales because and it also of course boosts Amazon Prime sales as well. So, but why am I giving you this example is, and I'll just come back to that quickly. Basically, David, what they've realized is okay. They are like a big e-commerce platform out there, but they felt that all right, our numbers are we want to our numbers are not as great as they should have been or as great as we've projected them to be. So what is the learning for a smaller business here is, if your and what you said about if where my abandoned add to cart is happening, why it's happening, or what's my average order value, and if I want to increase that. And if I can afford to give that kind of a sale or a discount during this time, go ahead and do it. There will be marketers who will tell you, no, you are diminishing your brand's image and things like that. No, it doesn't matter, because eventually you also have to get that cash flow into your business and keep the business rolling so that you can keep doing other things. And for a lot of small businesses, there is staff to pay, there is so much operational cost, and there is cost of goods, and there's a huge list as well,
Mhm.
and you need that kind of cash flow. So if giving a discount during these times is helpful for you, go ahead and do it. And uh, and at least to see what, and then of course what kind of discount you want to give, whether you want to do
Sure.
a bundle offer or you want to, there are different strategies again to manage that as well. So to cut a long story short, why I was giving the Amazon Prime was example was also because somewhere they realized that no, our numbers are not matching up, our businesses are suffering, so why not, let's just go and have another Prime Day, which is a grand sale day, right?
Yeah.
So that's one strategy which they are using currently, um, to boost sales.
So, I'll push back a little bit on the discount thing because I think it works well in e-com or in a place where there's, um, where consumers are trained already to look for discount. But then there's businesses where, they are already the premium and discounting is changing their positioning, right? And there's other ways, as you said, to present opportunity to their buyers that I would say is not necessarily discounting, and maybe it's as you suggested, like giving more, bundling stuff so that at the same price, so that they're not actually giving something up, and the perception isn't that they're cheapening what they sell by discounting. And so I know that that. I wanted to make sure our listeners heard that as well, because obviously
Yeah,
there's
that's a very fair point.
yeah, there's a
Yeah.
lot of pricing strategy that I think is important to think about in sort of the overarching how do you deal with your current situation without cannibalizing your future situation.
Absolutely, and that's a very, very valid point. And I'll give you, and just to add to that, I mean, I'll give you a hospitality industry example here. How they generally do it is, and it might not. So they would never use a word discount or anything. They'll say something like, "Sign up to our newsletter, and we'll give you a loyalty program."
Mm-hmm.
So there are ways to do it, and it can be, so you become a VIP customer. They make you sound important. They make you like, wow, I am, someone, and so we'll add you to that, and we'll give you these blue points or red points or green points, and that's when. So it's again, running a loyalty program
Yeah.
or doing things like that. So yes, and without compromising on your brand's image or cheapening the brand, as you said. So yeah, so there are a lot of ways to do it, and pricing can be done very, very differently. Discount just sounds a little cheap, but for want of a better word, there are a lot of ways to do things which can get you those sales coming in the door.
Yeah. The way I like to talk about it is manipulate the perception of price.
Ah, yes,
So
that's
there
a
you go.
fantastic
Um,
way of putting it.
I want to shift gears for a moment and talk a little bit about your business, Digital Street, and who you work with, who you serve, and the kind of projects that you tend to specialize in. Can you give us an overview of that?
Oh, sure. So basically, David, we specialize in fashion, beauty, lifestyle, e-commerce, and we've had a lot of brands like, think about jewelry brands, fashion brands, pet accessories. We really got big time into pet accessories. That's such a huge market out there. And
Which,
think
by the
of,
way, I'm going to assume is an area where people will not skimp during a recession, right? They
yes.
still want to spoil their furry kids.
You'll
Yeah.
never. So there's one very, very interesting thing. So people don't they don't like to compromise on things related to health, because even during recessions or when the economy is downturn, you feel that's the only thing I have, kind of a mindset.
Yeah.
Then education of their children, and of course the love for their furry friends. So those are few categories which always do well no matter
Mm-hmm.
what is happening. And yeah, so we specialize in a lot of e-commerce businesses for these. We also help in lead generation for a few categories, especially in the education sector. I have a lot of experience in that sector personally. And yeah, so that's broadly speaking what we do, and we help brands scale from 6 to 7 figures to 8 9 figures. Yeah, so and we also help. I also mentor businesses
Hmm.
in e-commerce growth, as well as in Facebook, Google Ads, now TikTok ads also. So
Excellent.
this
Are
is
you
what we do.
specializing in Australia-based businesses or beyond the borders of Australia?
So we are a global company. We
Hmm.
have a lot of clients in the US and the UK as well. The team is like scattered everywhere, and yeah, so it's the world is our horizon now,
Yeah.
and yeah, so we are beyond Australia. And as you know, I have global experience. Working across countries, continents. So all that really comes in helpful.
Excellent. Well, yeah, the world has gotten a lot smaller and arguably a little bit hotter every year, but that's a different podcast. So why don't we
Yeah.
wrap up by letting folks know where they can find Digital Street and learn more about the services you provide, and maybe dig into a little bit more of what you've been talking about by reaching out and having a conversation with your team.
Yeah, sure. That's fantastic. So, they can reach out on my website, which is digitalstreetau.com, or on my LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, so they can follow me on LinkedIn, and we can have a discussion on really anything to do with business, advertising, and marketing.
Excellent. Well, we'll make sure to leave a link. It's digitalstreetau.com. And also we'll leave a link to your LinkedIn profile as well, so people can connect with you. Veena Gandhi, thank you so very much for the conversation. This has been fabulous, wonderful insights, and hopefully has helped some of our listeners sort of think or rethink what they're doing or how they're making decisions in whatever tough economic times they may encounter, whether it's now or in the future.
Thank you so very much for having me, David. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I really hope the listeners take something out today from this. Thank you so very much.
Indeed. Folks, once again, this has been More Perfect Marketing. If you know somebody who could benefit from listening to this discussion, please share this episode with them. And if you have some feedback to share with us, why don't you leave a review over on Apple Podcasts? We would certainly appreciate it. Until next time, I'm David Baer, and this is More Perfect Marketing. Take care.